Thank you. Hello. I'm with Jörn Küpper, a senior partner with McKinsey. Jörn, thank you for your talk earlier. So I have a few questions for you. So you used as a phrase from vertical to horizontal, and that the monolithic model in retail is gone. Tell us a bit more. What do you mean by that?
I think we historically all grew up in a very kind of simple model where we had suppliers or brands, retailers and consumers. And each was working with the other in this chain. And even when brands were talking about customers, they were mainly talking about retailers.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the kind of vertical model you have seen in most consumer categories over the last 30, 40 years. Now, there are always exceptions, right? You have always seen some of the vertical players around, but I think this is the dominant model for 90% of the market. Still mostly today in DIY.
Okay.
Now, if you look at some categories, this is already moving from what I explained, from a vertical to a horizontal model. So brands are going direct to consumer. You see that at scale in the fashion industry, but you even see that in other categories more and more, in toys, in music. Secondly, you just see retailers integrating backwards. So the more classical thing was around private label, but now you see more and more offerings developed by retailers. And I think Home Depot was a good example, where I would argue this is only partly a retailer anymore. It's a kind of full service provider. And then you have new players in the markets, kind of not just the Alibabas and Amazons, but if we look at our DIY industries, if you look at Germany, Reuter, and the same is true in other categories, in fashion, Zalandos, ASOS. And then you even have new players coming into our space like IKEA, which was historically furniture, so less of an interface, but now it is going into home decoration, kind of the kitchen is relevant, and so on and so forth. So today the offering for the consumer is significantly broader than it has been historically. And this just creates a unique opportunity for the consumer to have a broader offering, a broader choice. But it just differs, it fundamentally changes the way we should operate in the system going forward.
Okay. And you gave some examples not from DIY, so there was, I think, Lego and Adidas and Zalando. What are some of the exciting things they're doing that are in this new way of working?
So some of them also in the past had a more confrontational approach, and it was more about kind of, if you start to sell your product through Amazon, I will stop doing business with you. Or they started to compete on prices, because if you go direct, then I will be lower on your prices and all of this. And for these three companies, this has started to change, and some of them, and I talked about Adidas with their creating the new strategy, they even be very explicit about that this open source cooperation, collaboration is a cornerstone of their strategy and mindset. I would say this is for me the starting point. Interesting enough, this is also what I've just experienced in the panel discussion. And I think for probably the first time I've seen kind of suppliers and retailers in our DIY space being on stage, talking about topics in a common mindset, agreeing to each other. So it was a significantly more cooperative approach than before. But these players just put that up as a key theme of their strategy and call it out and then develop it at scale.
Okay. And do you see any of this happening already in DIY? I mean, yes, they're sitting up on a panel, but what's going on? Are there some more examples of collaboration already?
I think it is happening, and kind of if you look at the US and if you look what Home Depot is doing and how they partner with suppliers within the industry, but also with providers outside. I think it was a good example from Bosch we've just heard about, that this tail end, and that you can just offer that to your customers, consumers. It got delivered out of a Bosch warehouse, but in a mirror, whatever, B&Q box. So I think we already see it. I would say now the moment is there to just bring it up at a higher level and at scale, and be even more systematic about what could this offering be for our consumers and how can we jointly develop it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.